Hello and welcome to my very first Ask the Expert as part of IDIFM. So we have Kat with us today. She's a sports massage therapist and personal trainer. And just tell us a bit about yourself, Kat.
Okay, I'm Kat. I qualified as a sports massage therapist back in March 2019. So I've been doing it about 18 months now, I think. No, maybe a bit less. And I made my own business. So I do it part-time. So I still work in an admin role for a forensics company. And then I do this Tuesday and Wednesdays at my Methley site and do it on an evening. So I enjoy helping people. I've enjoyed the process. So I've done mainly the sports massage side of things. And then recently I went on to do my personal training. So that was right at the beginning of the year. Did my fitness instructor level 2, and then I qualified as my level 3 in August. So I haven't really had a chance to use that yet because of a pandemic, maybe.
It's been an interesting year, hasn't it?
Yeah, just a little bit. So it has had a struggle for a lot of people who are qualified with as well. So it's not just some of us. So yeah, I had one personal training session before it all went into lockdown. So it's I've had a personal trainer as well for 3 years. So I had that background and knowledge from them. And then that's how I kind of got into wanting to do sports massage, really, was having a personal trainer and seeing how confident I got through exercise and being able to help people, having helped people now during sports massage. It's a nice, happy feeling, you know, when you've helped someone. Whereas in my main full-time job, I'm just kind of like, yay, another criminal's gone into jail. It's like it's kind of a very opposite job to what I usually would do on an evening. So I have enjoyed it.
Yeah, they are completely different. And I've always been fascinated when you first told me you were in forensics and stuff. And obviously in terms of sports massage therapy, I've been and I've worked with you and we've been looking at my shoulder and some injuries and stuff on that. And I did have a list of questions that I was going to ask, but you've pretty much covered some of them first ones off anyway.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Did you feel nervous when you first? So I know you just started PT, but in terms of when you started massage, how did you kind of get into it and gain that confidence? Because there's a lot of knowledge comes from the course. I know it's very, very much in depth. How did you find the best way to apply that?
I was very much the imposter syndrome at first, kind of, do I know enough to warrant having someone like pay me to know what I'm supposed to be doing, kind of thing. So it was very, very nervous at first. You had to do practice massages on 10 people. I think you could do between 10 and 20 people. So I had to practice before I could actually qualify. So I had friends, I had to do it on friends. It couldn't be just general public. So I had 10 friends to massage, and then I get feedback. So I did a feedback questionnaire with them to find out how they felt, how I came across. Could I have done anything differently? So I did want pros and cons. I wanted to know what I could do better. So I did learn from that, and you do gain confidence during the experience. And as most people around me know now, that I do like to learn a lot. I've kind of very much based on anatomy now. So I do a lot of courses. I'm going to be doing another one at the end of November, which is based on starting from the bones and working up from ligaments, tendons, muscles, so that, because you never stop learning. So we're starting on the foot and then we're working up the body. So it's very much learning. And I'm also doing a cadaver workshop in June next year. So it's very much good. It's really good to know what you're massaging, because I have been compared to, like, I've had people say, what's the difference between you and a spa massage? And I kind of gone, I was like, No, I feel like I'm more like a body detective sometimes.
Yes.
So I'm there to palpate, feel where you're having problems. It might be that I realize you find pain where you didn't think you had it. I'm there to help to find, not to find issues, to seek out what could be the cause of the issue. We're not allowed to diagnose, but we can give an idea of where you might be having issues.
Yeah, because from my experience of it, somebody, I would come to you if I knew there was something a bit tight, and therefore you would then be able to find out what the cause of that is. So you're not necessarily diagnosing something, but it's just finding what may be causing the ailment that I've come to you with. So that completely makes sense.
Yeah, because you're feeling around the area, so you'll be feeling around the muscles, especially like the shoulder, the rotator cuff area. So you'll be finding like putting your thumbs in like the teres minor or anything like that, where you're actually trying to to find where it could be coming from. Yeah.
It's interesting you said imposter syndrome then as well, because it's something that I'm massively researching at the moment, because I find myself in that position quite a lot, and sometimes you just feel like you always need to be learning to keep up and to kind of almost justify your role running a business, and to be the one that's responsible for somebody else's welfare and health and and fitness and everything else. Are there still days where that would make you feel a bit indifferent about what you do, or less confident? Or
I deal with it better than I used to. I used to kind of panic and go, oh God, I'm supposed to know everything. No one, and then I realized no one knows everything, and it's the way you deal with it. So it's that you'll go, oh, I haven't been asked that, but I will go and have a look into that for you, and I'll research it. So usually I'll get back to them later. So it's just a way of going back, having a look either in some books or on the internet at certain research papers, having a look and getting back to them, because I'd rather do that than rush an answer and giving them a half-assed attempt and going, well, this is all I know, when I could actually just go back, research a little bit, and then go in with a better answer. Or if I don't know and it's completely out of my remit, then I will refer on. That's where you've got to be confident and comfortable, and that you don't know enough. Or it could be that it's something kind of an osteopath or a physio should be dealing with, and it's starting to go out of my remit. I'm trying to think of a scenario, but I can't think of one. Oh yeah, I had someone who had like more of a slip disc kind of area, so I know that was not my remit. Or I had someone, he was someone I'd had before, but he'd jarred his knee, and I was like, well, that sounds more like something that you should really see a physio for, but I was able to refer him onto someone I knew. So it's making a network in your area as well, of people that you can refer on to, and it's definitely better to have that network than trying to see someone that you are not confident seeing.
Yeah, it's almost the reverse confidence. It's the confidence that you are aware of your scope of practice, your skill set, where you're comfortable working, and then knowing where to draw the line and say, actually, to get the best, to serve you best, I'm going to be better to refer you to somebody else. And that's not easy to do. I think sometimes, especially this year when you're self-employed, there's financial needs you need to consider as well. But actually, hats off to you for being able to do that.
It's definitely, I suppose, not more money based. I'd love it to be, but it's definitely more empathy. I suppose I have that empathetic. I want to make sure that they're getting the best treatment they can get, and if I know I can't give it to them, I will give them someone who can. So it's the best for that person.
No, perfect. I know we spoke about before we came on today, one of the big things that you come across, or one of the big questions you get asked and that you say all the time, is about stretching. So before and after exercise. So I just wonder if you could shine some light on, because there's that many theories out there on what's the best to do. What have you found is the best?
Yes, there's many things with research, and there's going to be so many different opinions on this, but definitely what I've noticed recently and through research, which I've heard more about through different forums and sports massage forums that I'm a part of, is that there's the dynamic stretching, which we learned in personal training, is you have dynamic stretching and static stretching. I don't really understand why it's called dynamic stretching, because it's not really a stretch, it's a dynamic movement. You're just moving, so you're mimicking what you're going to be doing in your actual exercise. So it could be that you're going to be doing a shoulder day. So you'll do some external rotations, you'll do some movements, so you're working the whole rotator cuff. So you're warming up the entire area, might be using resistance bands, just anything that's low weight, but it's just to help warm up the synovial fluid in the joints before you're going on to do the heavy lifting, so that there's less chance of injury. Whereas if you did like static stretches, you're overworking those areas where you don't actually need to stretch them that much. If you're going to be doing any like shoulder exercises, you're not going to be there doing like big extra stretches to work that far. You'd be probably only a small stretch. You don't need to go full on. So it would be a case of just warming up those muscles, warming up the shoulders before going on. It's the same with the running. I've got a good YouTube video I usually share with runners, and it's a dynamic running movement. So it's kind of an over movement, an over stretch, like an over lunge, like trying to describe it. It's kind of like an unusual walk, but it's like a funny,
like the Ministry of Funny Walks, Monty Python.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. Yeah. So it's kind of a mimic of the run you're going to do. So, but you're doing it to warm up the legs before you go on to do the full stretch out. So you're all warmed up beforehand, because I'm trying to make it more important for runners to make sure, especially at this time of year, that they're wearing either, I'd say, compression socks or anything where it's keeping the legs warm before you're going to go out and do a run. So it's just that kind of thing.
Yeah, because now, especially during this time, so we're in a 4-week lockdown period now, more and more people are going to be going out for a run or for a walk, especially up hills as well. So if we've got people going and doing the peaks and things like that, is there anything specific that you could say would help in that? Because your foot's at a really weird angle then, isn't it, if you're going uphill? Yeah.
So you definitely would do some kind of, like elevated calf stretches, but it's not a calf stretch, but it's, where you do elevated lift on the calf, or you do like leg swings, so forward and back. But it would probably be good to do like hurdles as well. So like the hurdle move where your legs out to the side, so that you're warming up the full hip, because the amount of, even when I've done like just short walks, you can definitely feel it in the groin area, and you will feel it in the hip, because it's just that repetitive move, back and forward, back and forward, back and forward. It's the same plane of movement all the time. So it's good to warm up the hips before any kind of like long distance walk or any kind of walk. If you're not used to walking for a long period of time anyway, any kind of just warming up those hips before going out on a cold day, just so that they are warm beforehand.
Yeah, and that video you mentioned, actually, it'd be really good to get a link of that, because I'll put it with the video when I put it out, because it's always useful just to be able to watch something before you go out. I think for anyone watching.
Yeah, I've definitely been sharing that with a couple of my runners recently. I'm hoping they've used it, but it is definitely one that's quite a good one to use, because it's Tom Marshall. He's an athlete runner. So he's done a practice one. He's through Sports Injury Fix, he works for now. But he's done this YouTube video to show dynamic stretch for runners. So, yeah. Oh,
great stuff. No, that sounds really useful. I know we had a couple of questions from a couple of the members of my group. One of them was based around sciatica. So it wasn't anything specific, but is there anything that you've come across or anything you can suggest for anyone having niggles with the sciatica or sciatic nerve? Or
the one thing I'd like to try and spread the word of is sciatica is not a cause, it's a symptom. There is something that's causing you to have sciatica. It's not the end. It's like, people use it and go, oh, I've got sciatica, but it's what's causing you to have that sciatica in the first place. It's that, I'll give myself as an example. I had an accident probably about 15, 20 years ago now, I'm that old, where I worked at the museum. I worked at the Royal Armouries, and I came out there and I tripped over some paving. They were laying some paving and they had some string out, and I tripped over it in the dark, and I just went flying. So it was the impact that caused me to jar my back. So it was all that just inflamed the sciatic nerve. Inflamed the muscles around it that pressed onto the sciatic nerve. So with most people, it'll either be a case of the lower back. So you'll either have, I think from L5 to S1. So your lower back is where sciatic nerve comes from. So you'll get the spinal cord, and then it splits into the sciatic nerve and then goes down your back. So it'll go into through the pelvis, through the sciatic notch, which then comes through into your glutes. And then your little piriformis muscle. So it goes underneath there and goes down to your legs, which is why people will feel that radiating pain of like pins and needles feeling down the back of the leg, and they've got sciatica. Sometimes I've only found out recently through more learning, is that some people will get the split of the nerve higher up. So it can actually be as higher up as the sciatic notch. The little hole in the pelvis, where usually it would just be one nerve, but it can split there instead of behind the knee, whereas it's supposed to happen. So it's usually, I think they say about 15% of the population will have that, and you won't know. It'll just be that it's more sensitive in that area than it might be for others. Because usually it would split at the popliteal behind the knee and turn into two nerves. Usually either that, or it could be inflammation with the muscles, like a piriformis pushing on the sciatic nerve itself, that is causing issues. I've had that. Usually if I do some glute work on someone, you can tell there's a little bit of pain. So sometimes it can be radiated from that area. It can be an irritation. It could be some muscles that are causing tightness, or like a tightness in that area because of work, exercise. So it's depending on what's really affecting the area to what is causing the sciatic problem. So
there's no specific stretches then, because I suppose it depends on what's causing it.
I've given, if it's the glutes one, if it's anything to do with the glutes, piriformis, there's the spiky ball one, which I've given to people, or anything that's like a tennis ball, so it's got a bit of a give in it, nothing as hard as some people have been using hockey balls or cricket balls, and I was like, no, that's a bit too painful. Something that's got a bit of give in it, but it's still got some structure to it. Where you either lean against a wall and have your bottom against it, so that you've got the back of the ball against the wall, and then you're just rolling back and forward, and you can put as much pressure on it as possible as you want, and then roll back and forward, or do figures of eights, and just to get into that area. You can kind of tell more when I've massaged it where it is that they need to be. But they'll feel it themselves. You can either do it against the wall or sat on a chair, but with sitting on a chair, you're going to find it harder to have that amount, because it'll be your full weight on it. So it's going to be harder for you to hold your weight off it if it's too much pain. So I usually say against the wall rather than on a chair. If it's lower back, it's harder, because you have to then look into whether it could be a herniated disc. I haven't got x-ray vision, so I can't tell whether there's anything in the spine area. I can do like feeling down the back. I can feel like where there's like the sciatic kind of be seen as a trigger point, where it would feel the pain before it would then go into the glutes. So if they feel it higher up in the lower back, then I know it could potentially be radiating from that area rather than from the glutes. but I wouldn't be able to tell the full story. It'd be more to do with what could have affected it, what started it off in the first place. Have they had an accident? Is it just from sitting in a chair all day at work? Is it just because they've been in that position all day? It's just they've been sat on their bottom all day. You know, it's not had any work. So it might be use of doing some donkey kicks or high kicks. You know, where you're kickbacks. So you're actually working the glutes to strengthen up the muscles again, because they're just not doing anything. It might be another reason why sciatica as well. Just a weakness of the muscles in that area.
Okay, because there are. Well, it's the posterior chain, isn't it? At the back, so the lower back, the glutes, and the legs, so the hamstrings. There can be quite a lot of linked things in there. So is that something that? So I think it was Helen that asked that question. Is that something that someone like you, as a sports massage therapist, will be able to maybe work with and try and see if there's any way you can free that up? Is that your kind of remit?
Yeah, there's like a test you can do. There's like a W test, it's called, where you do like back, glutes, hamstrings, and then you get them to lift their leg. So if they're on their front, they get to lift their leg, and you can see whether they're kind of in the right sequence. So if it's like hamstrings, glutes, so we'll see if there's any kind of strength in the glutes at all, or whether it's all back or whether it's legs. So it's good to work out whether the pattern's in the right order when it comes to it, or whether they do need to strengthen certain muscles. So that's where the PT side of things comes in. With being able to set exercise plans and that kind of thing, and sending them away with exercises to help strengthen the muscles again. So
Helen, when you're watching this, let's get you in touch with Kat and see if we can try and diagnose that. And we had one more question from Rachel. She says, I'm just reading it from my phone here. I have bursitis in my hip and very painful knee joints due to wear and tear. This means many stretches for hips I'm not able to do. I'd love some tips on how to handle the bursitis, as they won't do steroids into the area due to the situation at the moment with COVID, etc. Is there anything, any advice you can give on that from your experience?
It's similar to the sciatic side of things, where you've got to look at the cause, why she's getting bursitis in the first place. Because like we were saying, like, yes, you can have cortisol injections, but they're short term, like they'll be fine, they will help. But then you've got to look at the likelihood of getting bursitis again. So it's knowing what it was in the first place that's causing the bursitis. So it's especially because it's the movable joints that are the main areas that are going to get bursitis, because it's these bursa sacs. So they're fluid-filled sacs that are either in your shoulder, elbow, hip and knee. So those are the main areas that people can get bursitis from due to friction. So when the friction happens, because the bursas are there to help stop the bones rubbing together. So when the friction happens, it's when it gets inflamed and can deform. So you sometimes, I've seen it, you can see it more in knees. So you can see where the knee pops out more. So it's very painful. But it's looking at why people are getting it in the first place. Is it that the muscles around the area are not working? They're working one muscle more than the other. So there could be an imbalance. There are lots of exercises for bursitis, especially the hip. They've got like the clam, you know, where you have your feet together, and then you're just opening the legs on your side. And then you can gradually bring in the resistance band if you want to, when you're getting the strength back in the glutes. It's looking at what muscles are weak in that area as well, what muscles are being overused, or where the imbalance is that's causing the bursitis in the hips. I don't know if she's a runner or anything like that, but there's a lot of friction in the hips, so it could be that there's some tension from some of the ligaments that are in that area, especially the IT band. Any kind of fascia in that area is a very thick thing. Very thick fascia band, so it can cause friction. So it's working against those. thing I like to talk about, which is the 3 planes of movement. You've got your frontal, the lateral, and the transverse, and it's making sure we use them all and not just forward, because all we do usually is walking. So we're always using the frontal plane of movement all the time. So we need to make sure we are still using the transverse and the lateral as well. So you'd be your lateral raises, it would be your abduction work.
Things like side steps, rather necessarily, sidestepping rather than jogging forward if you're just doing short distances and things like that.
Side lunge, doing side steps using a resistance band, anything where, like swimming is great because your whole body supported, and you can just and you're using kind of all your planes of movement really. Transverse is more your twisting, so it's like more your shot put, your javelin kind of where you're twisting and using your trunk really. So that it's making sure we use them all so that we're not putting so much strain on the same repetitive. It is a repetitive strain of just doing the same movement over again. Yeah,
because what naturally happens, and I know from being a PT and what I've learned as well, is that if we underuse, so we concentrate on one thing, it'll make that stronger, but then there's inherent problems because then the others from underuse get weaker. So then actually, in terms of applying power and in terms of applying movement, it can get quite difficult, can't it?
Yeah, although it's like the ones I do quite a lot, it's like leg press, deadlifts, squats. They're all kind of very same movement. Even like leg extension, they're all the same. They're all up, down, there, and up and down again. So it's making sure you, even though people aren't as bothered about doing abduction machines on the legs at the gym, it's really useful. It's especially good for the glute medius as well, and getting all the smaller muscles that are not getting used as much on a daily basis, especially if you do have a desk job and you are just sitting all day. So it's good for that.
No, absolutely. Perfect. How is, in fact, I'm going to go to something else first. So if you had a couple of sentences of advice you could give someone, so particularly at the moment, I think we're in lockdown, so there's a lot of people working from home this year. So I would say there's going to be a lot more people feeling maybe lower back issues from being sat, on a chair that's unfamiliar, something like that. So is there something that a short snippet that someone can take away from this kind of interview and be useful really? Is there anything that you can think of that comes to mind?
Definitely taking breaks. If you're sat there's always usually, even when you're at work, they always say take a 15-minute break take so many minutes every 20 minutes. That never happens. I don't think I've ever had a job where you've done that, but it's making sure that I think your body starts to tell you anyway, that when you're sat at your desk and your back starts to hunch and you start to feel stiff, it's already starting to feel it. So get up. I've given exercises of kickbacks to just stand behind the chair and do kickbacks, any kind of glute exercise, so that you're working your lower back and your glutes, just so that, because you're just sat up on them, that's where the lower back start to hurt. There's some good YouTube videos, I think, but I was going to do one, I haven't yet, where doing some, even just sat on your chair, where you just twist. So you're just twisting your top half and twisting the other way, just to make sure you are like twisting the trunk. So it's a transverse move, just to help stretch out that lower back. It's a good one. Like
might be a good reason for you to do that video now.
Yeah.
No, that's fab. Thank you for that, and thank you for it. So just in summary then, so this is me thinking if I've heard you right then. So in terms of stretching, the best thing to do would be maybe to mimic the movement you're going to do, but with a light weight or no weight to warm up.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you can already see some niggles there. And then in terms of when you sat down for a long time, listen to your body. If anything feels tight or it's been a long time since you've had a break, maybe stand up, maybe just move, especially your hips if they're getting tight as well, and just make sure everything you keep moving.
Make sure to have more breaks. Yeah.
And just make sure. So basically, when your Fitwatch tells you that you've not stood up for an hour, you really should listen to it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, listen to your watch.
Well, the technology's there. We might as well use it. Eh?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
if anyone wants to get in touch with you, Kat, what's the best way for them to do so?
Well, I'm on Instagram on @StaceySportsMassage, or I'm on Facebook as well as is Stacey Sports Massage Therapy. You can find me there.
Perfect. And yeah, if you could send me the links to those videos, that'd be fantastic for me to put below. And thank you very much.
That's all right. My pleasure.